Well, that's it for the audience questions. Right now, it's time to change it up a little bit. And the careful capitalist himself, Mark Robinson, he's going to go into the hot seat. And I'll be asking the questions that we need to know for retirement planning. But first, here's a little information on Mark. Mark is a certified investment management analyst and an accredited investment fiduciary analyst. He has applied his years of industry-related knowledge to numerous investor education projects, such as hosting a finance-related radio show, The Careful Capitalist, and developing the highly successful Investor Education in Your Community program across Michigan. Well, now we've changed the hot seat a little bit here, I think.
Yes, suddenly very warm in here.
All right, so I'm going to start off. What is really the biggest single investment challenge that we're all facing?
Here's what it is for all of us in this room. How can I save a sufficient amount of money while I'm working, or maintain while I'm in retirement a sufficient amount of money to sustain me for what might be a 20 or 30-year retirement? Now, that's quite a challenge because we're not doing particularly well at it. And the statistics do indeed show that we're behind, greatly behind. We're not saving the right way, nor are we investing the right way. So we need to get in control over this.
All right, it is a daunting task, so tell us, what should we do?
All right, to take care of our future self, we need to deal with the now. And the only way you deal with the future is to get in control now and show efficacy. Because if we don't show efficacy now, it may have material long-term effects on our future self.
All right, so let's talk about investments. How do we get control?
All right, there's several ways we can do this, and let's start with what I call a decision sequence.
Okay.
And this just makes perfect sense as a business person, all of us as a consumer. Number one, what is it am I attempting to accomplish? My goals. Number two, how much time do I have to reach those goals? Number three, in light of what it is I'm attempting to accomplish and how much time I have, how much risk should I take with my investments, or should I avoid in meeting those obligations and to meet my goal? Once I know what it is I'm trying to accomplish, how much time I have, and how much risk I should take, then how do I allocate among the basic asset classes, stocks, bonds, cash, real estate, and hard assets? Once I've made that decision, I move to how do I diversify within stocks and bonds? And then the critical last decision, which is unfortunately where most of the time we start, is in what do I want to buy? The stuff. What goes into the portfolio? That's the most exciting part, it's the fun part, it's what we talk about, but it is the least critical part in this whole sequence I've mentioned.
All right, so you have very specific steps, and I think that's very good for people who have the confidence to do it themselves and to take control of their money themselves. But a lot of people maybe need a little bit of help from a financial services provider. So if we go down that road, what questions should we ask there?
First, we need to start by asking ourselves a few questions. What is it that I'm interested in? Do I want ongoing and continual advice? Do I want intermittent advice? Do I just want recommendation access to the financial markets, a tip now or then? I need to ask myself, what types of investments am I comfortable with? They could be insurance programs, they could be mutual funds, they could be individual stocks and bonds. What type of involvement do I want in this process? Do I want to be called on a regular basis? Let's talk about the markets, let's buy ABC and sell XYZ. Or do I want someone to do that for me and tell me what they did and why they did it and how they did on a periodic basis? And then how do I want to pay for it? Do I want to pay fees, or do I want to pay commissions?
All right, so once we have sort of figured that out, then what are the questions that we ask that person in particular who's going to be looking at our money and taking control of it?
Without getting interrogatory, there are several questions you should ask, and a good financial services provider will answer these for you as a matter of course. First of all, make sure that your portfolio and your financial circumstance is what they deal with on an ongoing basis. You can like the advisor very much, but how they do their business and their client base might not really fall into what your needs are. So make sure that you're part of how they do their business, the scope of the services, what are their qualifications, how long have they been doing this? So we want to know if they're qualified, if they are expert in what they're doing, what their designations are, what those mean. We want to ask who else might be handling my account. Now, we could really like the advisor, but he might be kind of the out front person, and you have other people within the group that are handling it. How do you pay for the services? Are they fee-based or are they commission-based? So these are the basic questions that you need to have answers to on your advisor so that you have a good fit.
So if you choose that person and then they start making investment recommendations for you, like the decision sequence that you talked about, is there a sequence of questions then to ask from there?
Yes, that's a remarkable question. So whether you are a do-it-yourselfer, you ask these to yourself, or of your financial advisor. Now again, a good financial advisor will talk these through with you conversationally during the process. But it goes in effect like this. Number one is a caveat emptor. Make sure the product that you are buying or that is being recommended to you is registered. It's a registered security with the state and with the Securities and Exchange Commission. Number two is, does it fit with what I'm trying to do? Is it part of my risk tolerance, part of my investment objective? How does it fit into my portfolio as a whole? We don't want a lot of isolated, random investment decisions. How does it fit in with my overall portfolio? What's its purpose in there? And then the final one is, what are the costs to purchase it, the cost to hold it, and if I choose to sell it, what's that cost?
We've talked a lot about investment issues here. What are other areas of our money that we need to get control of?
Outside of investing, we need to look at emergencies and other types of planning. So what that would be like, problems and emergencies would be, what if my spouse died? How would that impact me? How would it impact my living arrangements? How would it impact income? What if I had a major disability? What would that do to my ability to work, my living arrangements, convenience, things along that line? Medical emergencies. What about our uncle that we keep up in the attic that's kind of nutsy? What happens when something happens to him? Who does what, when, and how is very important. Planning for natural disasters and terrorism. Do we have a plan for the family or our extended family? What about returning parents, returning children, which some people think falls into the natural disaster or terrorism. But how do we make arrangements for that? Then we also have transfer of information and transfer of intent. What I mean by that is check up on your wills, your trust. Are they still current with what your thinking is and how you want things to play out once you've passed on? Have your passwords itemized somewhere where someone who, whether it's your spouse or some other trusted individual, knows how to get at your information. With online banking and things along that line, many of us might have accounts that other people don't know we have. So we'd want to have an understanding of that. Have a treasure map that in effect for your family says, here's where everything is that's important. All of my records, family archives, personal writings, all part of that.
Yeah, it's funny, sometimes we take for granted, we think that everyone knows exactly where all of our things are, but we really should have a map to see where things are.
Right, indeed.
All right, so as we wrap up, what would be like the 6 things that we need to know to say that we are in control?
Very basically, know what you own. And you don't need to make this a congressional study, but whether it's in your IRAs or in your 401ks, know what's in there. What's that composed of? Why you own it. Thirdly, how you're doing, and fourth, compared to what. So know what you own, why you own it, how you're doing, and measured against a relative benchmark so that you know how you're doing and is it a competitive rate of return. The final thing that you need to know is about your investment advisor. Know them philosophically, know their background, make sure that that is a good fit, and make sure that he or she is properly licensed and registered with the state in which they do business, and the investments that are being offered to you, are they also registered? In just doing those 6 things, Christy, you can protect yourself or from others on about 90% of what can come your way.
Mark, let me ask you this. There's a lot of people who are inching towards retirement or are already retired and thinking about that 401k. Is rolling over the 401k into the IRA, is that the best choice?
It depends. Often we think that that is the default, that we have to take it out of the 401k. Now, think about a 401k plan that is run by trustees. They have a fiduciary responsibility to bring only the best investments into that program. They're typically lower cost, particularly if you're working with a large corporation. So you have good investments, lower costs, you finally figured out how to use the internet, and all of that, and you have great access there. Not necessarily do you need to roll it into an IRA. check with your spouse, other investments that you have. You may have a stable of investments within your 401k that fit perfectly in with the other investments that you have.
So the hot seat hasn't been too bad here, has it?
It hasn't.
Yeah.
But I am feeling 2 or 3 of those 6 that was mentioned by Mike in terms of long-term care systems.
All right, well, we won't
My
get into that.
wheelchair please.
But we do have some questions from the audience.
Okay.
Are you ready?
I am ready.
All right, here we go. Go ahead.
My name is Lisa. At 27, I'd like to start planning for retirement now. What are some of the issues that I should be looking at, and how would those issues be different when I'm 40, 50, or 60 years old?
That's a remarkable question. At the age of 20 or in your 30s, you should be thinking about one thing: saving. You can't save too much. As we move into our 30s and as we move into our 40s, save. You can't save too much. But at the same time, what we want to do is start to control our debt accumulation. Because think this through logically. We're accumulating debt in our 30s and 40s, we're raising families, and then we need to start ratcheting down on the debt. Because as we approach our 60s and into our 70s, where we don't have human capital, I'm not getting the paycheck anymore, I don't want all of that debt service that really is problematic for cash flow. So in your 20s and 30s, save, save, save. 30s and 40s, start to moderate back on the debt. And into your 50s and 60s, use catch-up provisions with your 401ks or with other retirement programs or IRAs, so you can maximize the amount of savings for that challenge of having enough to sustain us for what could be 30 or 40 years.
And really important for young people to start thinking about their money and what they want to do.
That's right. Statistically in this room, if there are 20 or 30 of us that just turned 65 years old, there are going to be a handful of us that are only going to need the money for 4 years, and there are others of us that are going to need our retirement funds to last us 34 years. Now, that's a staggering statistic.
Absolutely.
So again, we're living a long time. That's good news, and it's also a terrifying piece of bad news because we worry about shortfall, our money living longer or not as long as we do.
All right, let's go to our next audience question. Hi there, go ahead.
Hi, my name is Gene. Mark, I've got a question for you. I hear all kinds of terms and titles used in the financial industries. Could you tell me the difference between a stockbroker and an investment advisor, please?
That is probably the single most important question when you are dealing with a financial services provider. Are you dealing with them on a customer basis or as a client? A stockbroker deals with you. They do not give you investment advice. They do not give you what we call continuing, ongoing investment advice. They give you recommendations. So the engagement there is know your customer. I need to know everything about you so that I can recommend then suitable investments for you. So as your customer, or you as my customer, I have to make sure that I know you and make recommendations that are suitable for you. So that's the standard of care, suitability. When we talk about investment advisors, particularly registered investment advisors, the standard of care is duty of loyalty or fiduciary, which means that I have to demonstrate that all of my considerations and all of the transactions are solely in your better interest. One's rules-based, this one is principles-based. So in this process here, you're giving me the role of serving as your steward, and I have a fiduciary responsibility. So in that case, we're dealing with something that is a client rather than a arm's length customer approach. So very, very different approach. And what's interesting is that the industry is moving more and more toward that standard of care, more towards a fiduciary standard of care and away from the salesman standard of care. And the reason is because we have a social imperative for that. We're not saving enough. The consumer has to get it right. The advisor has to get it right, or we have a public policy issue here.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Mark. You've given us so much to think about, so we all become money smarties and feel that we have a lot more control over our money and we have a lot more education about what to do. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And that is going to do it for today. Thanks to Mark and our other presenters for their tips, their strategies, and how we can all be money smarties. Remember, when it comes to your money, be informed, be aware, and be in control. I'm Christy McDonald. Thanks so much for watching. Take care.